Hey everyone, fascinating chat today with Tugger, who is tackling one of the biggest challenges in enterprise AI right now, turning scattered business data into something AI assistants can actually use in a meaningful, secure, and reliable way. Craig, how are you?
I'm great, Evan. Yeah, great to be here today, and looking forward to the chat today. Yeah.
Yeah, really excited for this conversation. The more I learn about the work you're doing, the more intriguing it becomes. Before that, maybe introduce yourself and the team, and how do you describe Tugger and the Tugger app, tuggerapp.com, to the folks viewing?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm one of the co-founders here at Tugger. Started a business a number of years ago, but in recent, I'd say weeks rather than months, probably, we sort of shifted the business quite a bit. Historically, we sort of focused around reporting, particularly around sort of Power BI reports and giving people the ability to get insights that way. But what we've done since then is effectively open up our platform so that people can then connect AI tools to it. So things like Claude and ChatGPT, so that it can then use these to get insights out of the business data they couldn't do before effectively.
Yeah, it's an intriguing time, and you're right at the center of it. And as you know, AI assistants are becoming the front door for how people work with information and data. How do you see yourself fitting into this new workflow with Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini and more?
Yeah, well, the way we sort of see it is that, tools like Claude, ChatGPT, they're almost sort of like the nucleus, if you like. They're starting to sit on people's desktops, people's phones, and people are using them all the time. A bit like sort of like, when people started using web browsers for the first time. They're all, we're all in web browsers every day. And the way we see it is that people are going to start working with their business data in different ways. So historically, you'd log into a platform, whether that be Salesforce, HubSpot, Xero, you do your work in there. A lot of the work is going to start to shift into tools like Claude, tools like ChatGPT, things like that. And that's effectively where we sort of fit in. Rather than going down the route of we could have easily built an AI layer in our own platform, but actually we'd want to be part of that ecosystem. We want to be bringing that data into the hands of people in the tools they're going to use every single day, which means that they can go into Claude, ChatGPT or whatever and say, well, actually, tell me what our sales revenues were last month, chart that for me, build that into a dashboard and basically give them just so much more control over that data than what they've ever had before.
Brilliant. And a lot of companies think connecting AI to enterprise data is, kind of plug and play. Even folks who are familiar with manipulating data in Excel and tools, that turns out to be a lot harder in reality and in practice than in theory. So what are some of the challenges there?
Yeah, so you probably see a lot of platforms out there, particularly SaaS platforms. They're building what they call MCP servers on top of what they've got. Those MCP servers, they're a bit like a USB-C cable, if you like, that can interchange between charging one phone and another or charging whatever device it likes. These MPC servers are giving tools like Claude and ChatGPT or Gemini that ability to talk to that data, if you like. But what all these tools do are allowing them to connect to it and talk to it. But what they're not sort of doing at the minute is making it, and you can't do things like cross-platform queries and things like that. These MCP tools and stuff that are in there, they're not geared up in that way at the minute, and they probably won't ever be geared up in that way. They're effectively geared up so that you can do things like right, create me a deal or whatever, or go and do something with this sale or whatever it may be, but they're not designed around sort of reporting, if you like. That's not where these things sit right now. And so the problem you've got is if you go and say, okay, well, I want to go and report on my HubSpot data or my Xero data, you hook up to that. But actually what you'll find very quickly is that you're hitting things like rate limits on APIs. Those APIs could change, if you like. Our platform effectively has its own MCP that sits in between these, and we've got a data warehouse behind it. So what we're effectively doing is looking at bringing that data from all these platforms into our warehouse. We've then effectively got a semantic layer, if you like, that sits on top of that. And by that, I mean, what that's doing is that's showing how all this data is linked together. So that's saying, you know, this job is linked to that quote. This quote is linked to that sort of salesperson. But not only that, we're also saying, you know, we're actually hinting and telling the AI that actually this might be a record in Zero, which has got, you know, it's an invoice, it's linked to this customer, but that actually also links to your HubSpot customer record. It refers back to the deal that was won by this salesperson. And it's this interlinking of all this data together to get to the point where you can then analyze it and get all the insights out that you want. That's sort of key. And, you know, there's a lot of people building MCP servers out there, but they're geared at one thing. They're geared at solving things just within Zero, or solving things just within HubSpot or whatever. And we're going, well, actually, you want to solve things across the board. You want everything joined together. You want to get one source of the truth and really delve into that data so that you can run your business more efficiently. You know, get those time savings in there, you know, increase your GP, whatever it may be.
Brilliant. Intriguing approach. What led you there to this warehouse-centric kind of model? Maybe hard experience?
It is hard experience. So, I mean, when we originally built Tugger, before we sort of made this pivot into the AI space, the whole point in Tugger was to kind of make it easier for SMEs, if you like, to work with their data and build out reports. It's very, very, you know, costly, very, very expensive, time consuming to set up data warehouses, if you like. You know, wherever you host them, you need DevOps engineers, you need people to look after the security, all that needs to be ordered and all the rest. So what we thought some time ago is actually, let's simplify all the process. Let's handle all that data warehousing for people. And that means that then we're talking back in the day now, people could then connect up Power BI or Tableau or even Excel up into that warehouse and start to build out those reports, do all that analysis without any of those complications. And then what we realized earlier this year is actually, now we've got all this data that our customers are holding, that's even better, because now the next problem is, in this world of AI, is, you know, people want to have that AI interact with that data in different ways. Well, we've already got that data, so we can then build a layer on top of that that makes that data easy for the AI to understand. I mean, the problem you've got is if you say, right, okay, well, I'm just going to go and store my data in this warehouse. There it is, it's thrown in there. If you then go and plug Claude or whatever straight at that warehouse, yes, it'll be able to write database queries. Yes, it'll be able to do stuff, but it won't have a clue that, you know, job status ID 7, what does that even mean? It doesn't know that might be a completed job. It might be a job that's in progress or whatever. It doesn't sort of know all that. And so we thought, well, surely the right thing here to do is to kind of go, well, we've got the warehouse, let's build a layer on top of that, and let's make it really, really easy for people to use.
Brilliant. And so, you know, when you launched AI Insights, you know, the idea of, you know, ask your business data anything sounds so intriguing. What are customers actually asking, and any surprise use cases or usage that you hadn't thought about?
I mean, weirdly enough, I mean, like you say, I mean, our strapline is, like you say, you know, ask your business data or anything. But weirdly enough, that's not necessarily what people are doing with it. So yes, they are doing that, but they're doing a lot more than that. There's still a concept, particularly outside of the tech world, that, you know, tools like ChatGPT, that they're there to help you write emails, they're there to write marketing copy, but actually you can do so much more with them. So what we're actually finding is that people have, you know, in particular sort of when they've got Claude hooked up to it, they're not just asking questions, you know, how profitable was my job last week or whatever. They're actually using Claude then to build out interactive dashboards that sat on top of the data that our platform's then surfacing. So those reports could be stuff that dashboards that they then share out with other people in the organization. And, you know, those dashboards are typically interactive as well. So they've almost done what we would have historically done just with Power BI. They've gone and done that themselves, but they've done it in like minutes as opposed to days or weeks in terms of building those out. And the other things that we're seeing as well is because, as I mentioned before, Claude and these tools will be the nucleus. But then they're also doing things like let's build a board pack out of this. Let's build presentations. I was literally just before we did this call, I was talking to someone who's actually trialing the product at the minute. I said, oh, what are you doing with it? I said, oh, literally, I have somebody working for us. I have financial controllers. They're typically putting me board packs together, on a weekly basis to build out, building out on the financials, what it's looking like. And that will take them hours and hours to do that. She said, I don't even need to get them to do that now. I said, I can literally just click a button because I've done it before, and out comes out the board pack again, and that's it, done. So it's becoming, they're using it for more as almost like a process tool, I guess, in some ways as well. But yeah, it's shocking what people are doing, and literally we just keep talking to customers and people on trying to say, what are you actually doing? Because we're trying to understand more and more what where people are going with it.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
Yeah, so exciting. That's the CFO's dream, what you're describing there. So and crazy, interesting use cases. And, one thing I'm experiencing, many are sort of tool overload. So many trying so many interesting tools. Some work out, some don't. How quickly can a customer go from, signing up with Tugger at tuggerapp.com to getting a useful answer or insight? What's that time horizon look like?
It's pretty quick in reality. So they can be connected up to a platform within minutes. So that could be, Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, whatever it may be, can connect that up. And then, because obviously we're warehousing the data, it can take a little bit longer to get the data across. Sometimes they can, it's ready within an hour. Sometimes it might be the following day. But if you look at the fact that if it takes you a day to get to the point where you can start asking questions, historically, you would have to go and actually get someone to go and write some code against a ton of APIs, whether that be APIs for QuickBooks or whatever. You'd need that. You'd also then need somebody to go and build you out a data warehouse. You'd have to secure that down. So you're weeks and months into the point before you even get to that. And then you've got no AI on top of that either. So when you compare it to where you're going, it's literally within a day, you're pretty much good to go.
That's fantastic. And, everyone's talking about productivity gains and asking tough ROI questions that are not simple to answer. Are you starting to see any hard numbers or feedback from customers yet?
Yeah, I mean, as I've touched on that before, in terms of the hours and hours of saving in putting together board packs and things like that. There's other customers that are seeing increases in GP and stuff. One particular use case where a customer, they, in the SME world, they're a £4 million turnover business. This would be, they're an electrical contractor, if you like. And what they'd seen on that 4 million is an increase after using our platform within a few months of literally, it was a $500,000 GP. So it's a $500,000 increase in GP they got from it. So they're very happy.
That's fantastic. And it's great to see a nice real world, blue collar, tangible example of a company getting real value.
Honestly, it's crazy. I mean, literally when we launched it, I had literally people ringing me up on the phone and actually going, "Oh, well done, guys." So this is just, they were just so shocked, and they'd hooked it up and were like, "I can't believe you've done this." They don't know how you've done it, but yeah, it's brilliant. That was so we were more shocked than anyone, I think, at the reactions we got.
That's great. Well, it must be very gratifying, satisfying to hear. And you integrate into a broad variety of systems, pretty elegantly. What about going deeper into specific verticals or becoming the kind of connective tissue across everything? You mentioned building contractors, construction. I imagine there are many other verticals that could use your technology.
There are a number of verticals. I mean, obviously we're into accountancy type spaces, so anything from anything. I mean, anyone who's using any sort of accountancy product, so CFOs, financial controllers, everyone's pretty much got them in their businesses. So you've instantly got that sort of covered, if you like. Historically, we've done a lot in the sort of the field service businesses. So like you say, the blue collar sort of stuff. But now, because we effectively opened up to a number of different platforms, at the start of the year, we were about 24 platforms we integrated into. Now, as of today, we're up to 52 platforms. So we've,
wow.
So we've increased, we've more than doubled within the space, in less than half a year, if you like. And that we sort of accelerating, if you like. So we can effectively go into so many different verticals. But where it really becomes powerful is the fact that because we connected into different platforms, there's different elements of different businesses that can use us. We hooked up into HR platforms, we hooked up into CRM platforms, hooked up into job management platforms, accountancy platforms. So you've got different areas of different businesses that can sort of move in on this. And yeah, I mean, we've got a huge roadmap of different platforms that we're going to build out. So, and what's great is we can do it, relatively quickly in terms of launching out, new integrations with new platforms. And our customers are even saying, can you connect into this? Can you connect into that? And then we're going and exploring that. And as long as there's a way to connect in, as long as that platform's got APIs or whatever, we can connect them in and bring them into our ecosystem, if you like.
Brilliant. So security and governance are still major questions around AI for enterprise buyers, particularly large enterprise. Lots of concerns about hallucinations and trust and all the usual important topics. How do you help customers feel confident in, the answers they're getting, but also build trust without slowing all the good innovation you're doing down?
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously something that comes up in our game quite a lot is the security questions, and I mean, most conversation will get that. Typically from CFOs and CTOs, they'll want to know how secure the data is. So in terms of everybody's data that we store in our platform, they effectively are all ring-fenced databases. So every single connection we create is in a separate database. So everything's kept ring-fenced in that way. All our platform as well. So we're an ISO 27001 certified business. That means that we've got all how we handle the data, how we secure that data, that's all externally audited. So that's all covered off from that perspective. And in terms of what actually goes into these AI tools, whether it be Gemini or whatever, what we do is effectively, we never really send in all the data at any point in time. It's the AI is effectively delving into our platform and getting out what it needs at the time. And what we're always recommending the people do is, we're always pushing people towards using, business versions of Claude, business versions of ChatGPT. Don't use the free versions. Use the business versions because by default you are not sharing any of that data with these LLMs for them to train them. And we don't pass anything to the LLMs for training either on our side. We're not doing any of that. So effectively it's, how they want to manage that security with, Claude or ChatGPT is, it can be controlled themselves. So they can, be comfortable in the fact that they've, made sure that nothing is going to these LLMs for training. Brilliant.
I'm sure you have a very aggressive, interesting product roadmap and feature roadmap that we can't get in detail today, but can you give a peek into the future in terms of things you're working on or planning over the next 12 months?
Yeah. So we're sort of typically growing out sort of our connectors at the minute, anywhere between 1 and 3 new connectors launching sort of every week, if you like. So that's by connector, I mean, that'd be a new platform that we'd integrate within. So that's ever evolving, if you like. We're evolving our semantic layer, if you like, the one that's, making it easier and easier for the AI to understand what's going on with the data as well. That's evolving all the while. But what we're also looking to do in the next quarter, we're going to do a fundraise as well. So we're going to go out for investment and do a raise there to bring that up, because what we want to do is effectively speed up that connector roadmap, and put more money into build that semantic layer, if you like. So,
brilliant. Well, great opportunity for any investors who might be watching or listening. You're also busting a lot of myths about AI and how difficult or easy it is to deploy. What are some of the biggest roadblocks you think to really driving enterprise AI adoption beyond the flashy news headlines? You have quite a practical approach. What needs to happen to really make this industry achieve its potential?
Yeah, I mean, it's strange at the minute, because when you talk within tech communities, everybody's adopting it. Everybody is using AI. Everybody is jumping on board with it. When you go outside of that community, there's a lot more fear. Fear is one thing. There are certain industries that are absolutely terrified of what's going on with the data, which is obviously why secure is a big thing that we always get asked about. Where's my data going? Is it secure and all the rest of it? So governance has got to be something that sort of like is really sort of brought on as well. People are scared of hallucinations as well, because there's a lot of traffic out there. If you look on platforms like LinkedIn and news, it's come up with this number and all the rest of it. So there's fears around that as well. The way we sort of alleviate those sort of fears in our platform is the fact that we've got this. We're only talking to data that you have, real data. It's not going out to the web to go and try and guess this stuff. It's talking to data. And we're obviously evolving the layer all the time, this semantic layer, if you like, all the time, which tells it how are you supposed to join this and all the rest of it. But yeah, it is a strange world, but it's at the minute things are evolving quickly, very, very quickly. It's bizarre. I mean, one day something else is happening, the next day something else has come out, and it's so fast. I think from an enterprise perspective as well, there's a lot of hurdles that have to be sort of jumped, if you like, in large scale enterprises. I think SMEs are quicker to adapt because they don't have all the tape. They've got the red tape they've got to get through. But I think in those enterprises there's a lot more red tape. Certain industries, whether energy industries, when you're talking about like nuclear power or whatever, they're just not going near it at all. I mean, they can't. People can't even connect Wi-Fi into the.
Right.
You know what I mean? So actually, then being able to send it out to AI is going to be a sort of a problem for those guys at the minute.
Yeah, lots of roadblocks that need to be navigated. So if you're maybe a mid-sized enterprise looking to dive in, how do they get started? How do they, go to tuggerapp.com and, reach out? Maybe I see you have book a demo, but even get started for free. What does that mean exactly?
So basically you can literally get started for free. Our platform comes with a 10-day free trial anyway. That gives you plenty of time to get the data out and integrate it. But yeah, you can literally just go through, click up, sign up for free. Nobody has to put any card details. There's no tie-ins or anything like that. And it'll basically walk you through. So we've got an onboarding process, if you like, that just takes you through step by step how to connect everything up. And then, once your data's there, you can start to produce reports just like you sort of seeing scrolling up and down the screen there from the sort of Claude example there, if you like.
Brilliant. Well, I can't wait to touch base in 12 months and hear more incredible stories and anecdotes from customers and see where you are with the platform. Thanks so much for joining and sharing the vision.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's been great, Evan.
Thanks everyone as well for listening, watching, sharing the episode. And check out our TV show, techimpact.tv, now in business channels like Fox and Bloomberg Television. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Evan. Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye.